A finish line, a deep sleep wrapped in. Silence where nothing stirs, nothing matters. Be good and you go to heaven. Be bad and you face hell. That's the script. But what if that script is wrong? What if the ones who've passed aren't asleep, but more alive than they've ever been? Not drifting through an endless slumber, but learning, evolving. And yes, even guiding us. Edgar Cayce, long dismissed as a dreaming mystic, saw something radically different. In his trance states, he spoke of an afterlife, not of judgment, but of motion, decision, and purpose, not a place of reward or punishment, but of awakening. According to Cayce, death isn't a dead end. It's a doorway, and if he was right, then nearly everything we've been taught about dying is false, crafted to keep us small, obedient, and afraid, but that story ends now. You're here, so let's pull back the veil. What Edgar Cayce saw beyond the veil. Edgar Cayce didn't look like a man who would rewrite the spiritual map of the modern world. He was soft-spoken, humble, a quiet figure from rural Kentucky. No temples, no rituals, just a man who, when he laid down to sleep, channeled truths that reshaped everything we thought we understood, especially about death. They called him the sleeping prophet, but what he saw while unconscious was far from a dream. He described the afterlife not as fog or fantasy, but as structure, as intelligence, as activity. To Cayce, death doesn't lead to oblivion or punishment, it leads to the astral plane, a realm not of clouds or fire, but of energy, reflection, and renewal. This place, he said, mirrors the earth, minus its noise and distractions. It isn't a waiting room, it's a continuation. Souls don't pause there, they engage. They review the life they just exited. They sift through moments not to be judged, but to understand. According to Cayce, souls feel the impact of their actions not by decree, but through experience. Imagine knowing how your choices shaped others, not because someone told you, but because you felt it. Some souls move through this quickly. Others linger, not from punishment, but because they're still attached to people, places, wounds. Some don't even realize they've died. That's how near this realm is to our own, close enough to brush against the edges of our reality. Close enough, Cayce said, that some spirits still interact with the living, not to haunt, but to guide, to heal, to finish what was left undone. If Cayce's visions were right, and thousands of readings suggest they were, then we've been fed a hollow version of death, not just by religion, but by education, culture, and society itself. We've been told death is a period, so we never ask what comes next, and when you believe nothing comes after, you can be controlled, you stay small, numb, obedient. But if the soul continues, if it evolves, then every moment, every decision matters. That's where Cayce's most controversial insights emerge. On soul groups, on those who resist change, and truths too. Disruptive to say out loud. That's why we explore the deeper layers in our free newsletter, Insights Academy. You can sign up in the description and receive the Kabbalion ebook. As a gift, Edgar Cayce's afterlife wasn't a fantasy, it was a framework. One where free will lives on, where growth never ceases. A school beyond the body. One that prepares you for what comes next. And what comes next is always up to you. No eternal court. No sentence of paradise or punishment, just consciousness, choice, and the ever-present chance to rise. The soul's life review, no judge, just truth. One of the most misunderstood ideas about death is the idea of judgment. For centuries we've been taught that after we die, we face a trial, a cosmic courtroom, a white-bearded judge, a fiery pit below. You're either redeemed or condemned, heaven or hell, black or white. But Cayce offered something radically different. No court, no throne. Just a mirror, not a judgment day, but a review. He said the soul isn't punished. And it's not praised, it's simply shown itself. Not from the perspective of some external power, but through the lens of pure, unfiltered truth. This life review begins shortly. After entering the astral plane, it's not forced, it's not theatrical. It's organic. The soul is pulled inward, like a river flowing back to its source. You re-experience key moments, but not in a flash. You feel them. Emotionally, spiritually, you see the ripple effects of what you did. Not just from your eyes, but from the eyes of those you touched, their joy, their pain, their confusion. You become the receiver of your own impact. It's not cruel. It's evolution. The soul, Cayce said, learns through empathy, through insight, not through guilt, but through clarity. And that clarity isn't about punishment. It's about alignment. It's about becoming who you were always meant to be. For some, this leads to healing. For others, a decision to return, to finish something, to learn anew, to help others from beyond. The deepest truth, Cayce shared, nothing is hidden in the afterlife, not from anyone else, from you. The illusions you clung to, the stories you sold yourself, the masks you wore, they dissolve. You can't hide from your own soul. That's why many resist this version of the afterlife. It's easier to accept a heaven or hell narrative. Simple, binary, but Cayce's view, it hands the power back to you, not as a burden, but as a gift. It means your growth never ends. It means your choices always matter. Even in death, you're still the author of your story. So ask yourself, are you living a life you'd want to see again? The astral plane, the space. Between worlds, we imagine the dead drifting into some unreachable realm. But Cayce said the truth is far closer. When we die, we don't vanish. We shift. We enter a reality that touches this one like a shadow at noon. He called it the astral plane. Not heaven, not hell, but a conscious, vibrant dimension. Filled with motion, memory, and meaning. It's the in-between. The space between lifetimes, between identities, between states of awareness. And according to Cayce, it's more alive than the physical world we see with our eyes. He said, the astral plane is where most souls arrive after death. It's where they reflect, reorient, meet soul companions, and begin the next phase of their evolution. But it's not limbo, and it's definitely not punishment. Souls here are active, sometimes peaceful, sometimes restless, depending on what they carried from the life they just left. This realm has layers, vibrational levels, and you don't get placed in one. You resonate into it. You arrive carrying the energetic signature of your past life, your emotions, thoughts, beliefs, and unresolved pain. Those unfinished lessons, they don't disappear, they rise. Cayce called it a school of mirrors. Everywhere you look, you see yourself, your attachments, your fears, your truths. Some souls embrace this. Others resist, and that choice determines how long you stay and what comes after. And you're not alone. You'll meet others, people, from this life and beyond. Souls you've loved, harmed, helped. We return, Cayce said, in clusters. Soul. Groups evolving together across lifetimes. You may not recognize their faces, but you'll feel their essence because the connection runs deeper than memory. In this space, you reconnect, to grow, to complete, to support. It's not reunion, it's collaboration. Because evolution is never a solo journey. And here's where things truly shift. Some souls in the astral plane are still reaching out to us now. But that is a story for next time. Maybe the astral isn't a puzzle to solve. Maybe it's a message, a reminder that nothing ends, that life isn't a single stroke across a blank canvas, but one brush in a masterpiece spanning many frames. If those you've loved exist beyond the veil, growing, guiding, evolving, then you've never truly been alone. Not for a second. Yes, they're still working, just not like you think. If you imagine the afterlife as a serene, eternal nap, you might be holding on to a comforting myth, according to Edgar Cayce. The departed aren't lying around in celestial hammocks. They're busy, deeply engaged in a purpose beyond our perception. Death doesn't end your effort. It simply redefines it. Cayce described a dynamic afterlife, where souls are anything but passive. Many return momentarily, to comfort us in dreams, to whisper guidance through intuition, or to give us that strange but calming feeling of being watched by someone familiar. Others operate at even subtler levels, stirring ideas, seeding breakthroughs, or nudging human progress forward through unseen means. We've been trained to dismiss these moments as coincidence, but Cayce insisted they're intentional. That sudden sense of safety in chaos, the lightning bolt idea that changes everything, or the voice that stops you just before you step into harm. These might be the touch of a soul still woven into your story. According to Cayce, many souls continue their life's mission even after death, especially those who lived in service. Teachers, healers, helpers, they don't abandon their calling, they amplify it without the weight of a body. The soul can channel energy more freely, acting without limitation. Souls, he said, can form collectives, what he called councils, groups working together to guide events on Earth. They don't control us like puppeteers, they stabilize, they steer. They offer quiet support when the world shakes. This is especially true in times of upheaval, in moments of global change when humanity reaches for something more. They step in, not with fanfare, but with focused presence. They plant thoughts in open minds. Courage in broken hearts and strength, where it's needed most, not for applause, but because growth is the soul's nature and growth doesn't stop at death. Some souls, Cayce said, also use this in-between time to prepare, to study, to plan. Earth is a school. And before returning, many review old, karmic patterns, reconnect with their soul group or work with advanced souls to shape their next mission. Nothing is left to chance. You don't spin a cosmic wheel and wake up in a new body. Every detail has intention, every placement has purpose. There are also souls who've already completed much of their earthly path. Cayce described them as teachers, mentors, still connected to Earth but no longer tethered to it. They walk between dimensions, drawn to those awakening, those starting to remember that there's more. They don't force themselves into your story, they wait until your frequency rises, until you begin to listen. Then they come closer. Then their voice becomes clear. We've been told that death ends influence, that the dead are gone, but Cayce offers a different truth, a deeper one. The dead may be beyond sight, but not beyond connection. They're still here, still guiding, still helping, and if you can silence the noise and truly listen, you might realize you've never been walking alone. Reincarnation isn't a curse, it's a choice. To some, reincarnation feels like a trap, an endless carousel of lives, deaths, and returns, but Edgar Cayce turned that notion on its head. He said reincarnation isn't punishment, it's permission, not a sentence, but a decision. The soul doesn't get dragged back into Earth like a prisoner to a cell. It returns because it wants to, because there's more to learn, more to remember. Earth, Cayce said, isn't a prison, it's a school, a vivid, painful, breathtaking classroom where the soul gradually uncovers who it truly is. This changes everything. It means you didn't appear here by random chance or genetic luck. You're not a fluke of biology. You're here by choice, a choice shaped by your soul's own blueprint. And when this life closes, if there's still more to grow into, you'll choose again, because you'll want to. Each life, Cayce said, offers a new perspective, a different angle of the same truth. Maybe in your last life, you were privileged and now you need humility. Maybe you were emotionally cold, and now you're learning to feel. Maybe you ignored your potential, and now you've returned to finally embrace it. The patterns that follow you aren't punishments, they're invitations. If you resist them, they repeat, but if you lean in, if you listen, they evolve. And so do you. Even karma, Cayce taught, is misunderstood. It's not vengeance, it's not a scoreboard. It's simply energy balancing itself, the echo of choices, seeking closure. If you caused harm, you might be given the chance to feel what you once inflicted. Not to suffer, but to understand. Karma is empathy in motion, a path to compassion, not condemnation. And here's the most surprising part. You have free will. Even after death, if you've outgrown Earth's lessons, you don't have to come back. There are other realms, other experiences, other frontiers, but many choose to return. Out of love, out of purpose, to serve. These souls don't reincarnate for themselves. They come back for others, to hold light in dark places, to anchor hope in a forgetful world. They often live difficult lives, not because of old karma, but because they're keeping space for the rest of us, and sometimes they forget too, until something wakes them up. A tragedy, a dream, a conversation that hits a little too deep, and something inside whispers, you've done this before. You chose this and you'll choose again. Reincarnation isn't a curse, it's a sign that your soul is brave, that it's committed, that it's not afraid to look into its own reflection life after life. until it finally recognizes itself. And once you no longer need to come back, you don't rest, you rise, to serve in higher ways. But for now, this breath, this moment, this path, it's sacred, and perhaps the most empowering thing Cayce ever said was this: you were never forced to come here, you asked to, because you knew you were ready. Higher realms and cosmic service. Some souls don't return to Earth, they graduate. Edgar Cayce believed that even after multiple lifetimes, the journey doesn't stop. Beyond this world, he described, vast realms of consciousness, dimensions where the soul no longer seeks personal evolution, but serves something larger. These aren't fantasy, heavens of harps and clouds, they're dynamic, living states of awareness, where the soul operates with deep wisdom and cosmic purpose. In these higher realms, the question isn't, what can I gain? It becomes, how can I give? Just as we move from childhood to maturity, so too does the soul. And once it has absorbed all Earth can teach, it moves onward, not to retire, but to serve. That service can take many forms, helping newer souls through transitions, supporting planetary evolution, weaving balance across the vast energetic web of the cosmos. Cayce didn't describe this as fiction. He saw it as the soul's natural next phase. In these dimensions, there's no fear, no ego, no lack. Souls move with purpose, in unity, without masks. Communication is instant. Time bends and reality shapes itself around pure intent. That these souls don't carry the heaviness of regret or comparison. They've learned that we're all part of the same breath, that your growth is mine and mine is yours. But even in the highest dimensions, evolution continues, not through pain, but through purpose. This is what Cayce called cosmic service, guiding, uplifting, creating not for self but for all, helping from behind the veil, seeding entire realities, acting as the architects of what comes next. These souls are not floating in stillness, they are stillness, and they move within it like stars with intention. What makes this idea so powerful is what it says about us. If those beings were once like us, confused, hurt, searching, then we are walking the same path. Enlightenment isn't reserved, it's earned, step by step, life by life. And those who now dwell in higher realms, they haven't left us behind. They are near, not as masters not to be worshipped, but as equals who simply remember more. They don't respond to pleading, they respond to resonance, not through command, but through invitation. When your heart tunes in, when your mind opens up, that's when they draw close, because the truth is simple. You've never been alone, not in this life, not in death, not in any step of this sacred journey home. Why this knowledge remains hidden. If Edgar Cayce's revelations about the afterlife are accurate, if our souls persist, evolve, guide, and return, then why isn't this understanding widespread? Why isn't it taught in schools, discussed in churches, or featured in mainstream media? Why does it feel like uncovering a secret message concealed behind a familiar painting? Something that's been in plain sight all along. Perhaps it's because this truth was never meant to be common knowledge, at least not within the confines of our current societal constructs. Cayce's insights challenge the foundations of dominant institutions, religious doctrines, political systems, educational frameworks, and consumer-driven cultures, all of which hinge on a singular belief that death is the final chapter, and fear is essential to maintain order. When death is perceived as the ultimate end, every action in life becomes burdened with urgency. You're told you have one chance, one opportunity to get it right. Obedience becomes a prerequisite for reward, and fear becomes a tool for control. Fear renders you predictable, and predictability is the cornerstone of manipulation. But what if death isn't the end? What if the soul is eternal, active, and continually evolving? Such a realization dismantles the power structures built on fear. You begin to make choices not out of survival, but from a place of authenticity. You cease seeking external validation and Start questioning systems that thrive on your compliance. Independent thinkers are challenging to manipulate, difficult to market to, and nearly impossible to control. This is why Cayce's work is often overlooked, dismissed, or suppressed. He wasn't promoting a new religion or seeking converts. He was merely conveying what he consistently observed in thousands of trance readings. Whether addressing health, relationships, spiritual purpose, or connections with departed loved ones, the answers consistently pointed to the same truths. The soul is immortal, our actions have significance, and reality is far more expansive than we've been led to believe. Such truths aren't easily commodified. They don't fit neatly into sound bites or keep people in a state of desperation. Instead of embracing these insights, society bombards us with distractions. From birth, we're inundated with messages about wealth, fame, power, and beauty. We're encouraged to succeed in a game we never agreed to play, told what to fear and what to desire. Underlying it all is a persistent narrative. This life is all there is. One shot, one opportunity. Don't mess it up. This mindset keeps us anxious, confined, and chasing illusions. But what happens when that illusion shatters? When you realize you've lived before will live again, and that unseen companions walk beside you even. Now you stop playing the game. You start asking deeper questions. You begin to remember your true purpose. This knowledge isn't threatening because it's dangerous. It's threatening because it's liberating. It challenges the narrative that obedience equates to virtue, that authority holds all the answers, and that spirituality must be mediated through institutions. Cayce's readings suggest otherwise. They propose that you have direct access to higher wisdom, to inner truths, to the very forces that shape reality. Once you grasp this, you become formidable, impervious to fear. That's why this information is relegated to the fringes, not because it's false, but because it's disruptive. It empowers individuals, reminding you that you're more than flesh and bone, more than a name or a societal role. You are consciousness, memory, and intention, temporarily housed in a physical form here to recall truths you've always known but intentionally forgotten. And once you remember, you can't unremember. Truth has a resonance, and once it vibrates within you, it cannot be silenced. This is why such knowledge remains concealed, not due to weakness, but because of its profound potency. Those who benefit from your confusion would prefer you never discover it. But you have, you're here, you're listening. How this understanding transforms everything. Recognizing that death is not an end but a transition, a return to a deeper truth, alters your entire perspective. Suddenly, the pursuits that once seemed paramount, career achievements, physical perfection, societal approval, diminish in importance. In their place, clarity, purpose, and an unwavering sense that life is intentional and meaningful begin to flourish. Cayce didn't merely describe the afterlife. He offered a blueprint for living differently in the here and now. If the soul continues to evolve beyond death, then the work you're doing now, your conversations, challenges, healing, and capacity to love extends beyond this lifetime. Every decision becomes part of a larger narrative, a chapter in an ongoing journey. You're not merely reacting to a chaotic world that spans multiple existences. You're actively participating in a conscious evolution. This realization doesn't burden life, it sanctifies it. Viewing the soul as a continuous conscious presence reshapes our relationships with grief, ambition, and connection. Losing someone doesn't signify their absence. It indicates a change in their state of being. They're still progressing, just on a different frequency. Understanding this transforms mourning into a space for connection, allowing us to communicate with respect rather than desperation. This perspective also reframes our personal struggles. Traumas and heartbreaks are no longer seen as punishments but as opportunities for growth. Not in a superficial everything happens for a reason sense, but in a profound acknowledgement of our capacity to evolve through experience. Life transitions from something to endure to something to sculpt. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start inquiring, what is this teaching me? This subtle shift marks the beginning of mastery. You also come to realize that your presence here isn't accidental. You didn't randomly end up in this body, this family, this era. Your soul chose this incarnation, not for comfort, but for growth. You arrived to remember, to break cycles, to teach, to serve, and to love more deeply than ever before. If you've often felt out of place, as if longing for a home you can't name, it's likely because a part of you remembers that. This isn't your first journey. That remembrance is pivotal. Once you recall your true nature, the systems designed to control you lose their grip. You cease living in fear, operating on autopilot, or chasing goals that aren't truly yours. Instead, you begin to ask, what resonates with me? What feels authentic? What would I pursue if fear weren't a factor? Cayce's teachings aren't solely about what transpires after death. They're about how to live fully while you're here, with integrity, awareness, and the understanding that every action carries energy that transcends this life. It's not about perfection. It's about presence, intention, and awakening. If you've engaged this far, it likely means you've already started this journey, questioning, remembering, peeling back the layers. But this is just the beginning. Once you've glimpsed the truth, there's no returning to ignorance. And honestly, why would you want to? You weren't born to conform, you came to awaken. The journey continues, and so should you. We're standing at the threshold of a truth many spend their entire lives avoiding. The reality of death, not the dramatized versions presented by religion or the void depicted by materialistic science, but something more profound and vibrant. Cayce didn't claim the soul ends, he asserted it expands. He spoke not of final destinations, but of stages, realms, and evolution. If this is accurate, if the journey persists beyond our physical existence, then perhaps we've been posing the wrong question all along. Instead of asking, what happens when I die? We should be contemplating, how am I living now that will influence what comes next? Understanding death as a transition rather than a conclusion reshapes our priorities. Life is no longer about extracting maximum pleasure or avoiding punishment. It's about approaching each moment with intention, preparing not out of fear, but with the reverence one would have before entering a sacred space. Departure from this life is inevitable. That's not a threat, but a certainty. However, how you depart, what you carry with you, and what you've transformed during your time here, that's entirely within your control. Cayce illuminated that our time on earth isn't random or meaningless. We enter this life with lessons to learn, connections to make, and shadows to confront. Every step toward awareness, healing, and truth not only alters your path, but also influences the energy you leave behind. You're not living solely for yourself. Your journey impacts your soul group, your lineage, and even those you'll never meet in this life, but have encountered in others. The departed aren't idle, they're still learning, loving, and moving closer to their true essence. They're not finished, and neither are you. What we perceive as the end is merely a transition in a much grander narrative. Perhaps it's time to stop viewing death as an adversary and start seeing it as a mirror. The more we comprehend what lies beyond, the more empowered we become to shape what comes next, not just after death, but in every moment we're alive. There are truths you've now uncovered that can't be unseen. With this knowledge comes responsibility, not a burden, but a liberation. Live with purpose because it matters. Heal what you've been avoiding because it lingers. Love wholeheartedly because in many ways it's the only thing you truly carry forward. If you're ready to delve deeper, consider joining Insights Academy, our free newsletter. You'll gain access to profound teachings we can't share elsewhere, and for a limited time, receive a complimentary digital copy of the Kybalion. It's more than a newsletter, it's a guide. But all of this is meaningless if you don't understand where the soul journeys next and why. Click on the video you see right here. If this message resonated with you, let us know by commenting and I understood it.